So, doing a lot of reflecting on my walk this morning and typing out what I'm going to discuss for this video. It's not about going on a cold walk, but I think that the main idea I want to really emphasize on this video about making mistakes is that I've done a lot of journaling this year where it's the same kind of thing, and I wish I could have done this better. I wish I could have done that. I messed up here. I feel really bad. And in the end, it's just kind of a thing that now that I'm looking at it since the starting discovery, I've really figured out that mistakes I've made and a lot of where I went wrong in my life is kind of the sources I've found from making all this stuff and typing all this, journaling down. Because the perfect life is almost a sense of a facade, or the life that you imagine, life you envision, dream. I feel like there's nothing that, like I talked about before, having that aspiration of the finish line. There is no exact point of the finish line and waiting on it without messing up and going and putting the work in, because I feel like making mistakes and failing and getting rejected is all that's shaped me as a human in my life. So, you know, don't bring yourself down about messing up.
It's interesting to think how many activities in my life that I enjoy doing now was once something I never thought about doing beforehand. Yet so many things that are very possible for me to try out now still appear as intimidating thoughts. Since I was little, I've seen so many people do certain acts on TV, from singers making it big to athletes playing on the best professional stage, and always imagined myself doing something similar one day. The big problem was that the process for trying to get to the professional levels for both of those were not as I expected in terms of the level of simplicity I had in my head. Getting into the real world, I've now begun to figure out that there's so much anxiety that surrounds us today coming from the fear of trial and error, or even just attempting to do something that someone else has spoken negatively about in the past. Making a mistake on something you previously had no experience with before is a privilege in a world that is filled with so many people living with repetitive and dreadful daily routines. And then the day came where the risk to remain tight in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom. Quote by Anais Nin. When we look for reviews from people about certain places, jobs, items, movies, TV shows, etc., there often seems to be a predetermined thought process of how experiencing one of those will turn out for ourselves without even making our own effort. Seeing negative reviews can be a good thing for something that seems too good to be true, but the problem is that I personally have missed out on so much previously because I strongly worry about wasting my time or money. With how much access we have to many things existing in the world, instead of simply being curious, we have other people who we don't even know posting something they didn't like online and just taking their word as bond. There was one night I had nothing to do when I decided I was going to watch 3 movies that seemed interesting and I had never heard about previously. 2 of the 3 movies that I watched were criticized on the internet deemed as too slow or the plot doesn't make sense, and I thoroughly enjoyed both of those films. Aside from movies even, there are instances where things were genuinely a waste of time or a waste of money to me, as not everything is going to have value to us, at least initially. On the other hand, missing out on experiencing certain occasions and even potentially a job that works for you rather than other people with different mindsets is only stopping you from expanding your perspective of the world. In many cases, the right situation for you in your path of life could be just around the corner. All you have to do is ignore the outside criticism and just be your own evidence. There have been too many times in my existence where I tell people this may be a dumb question, or just try to do something I have no knowledge on without asking for help simply because of the fear of others' negative assumptions. This really proved to myself in recent years how much I feared someone doubting my intelligence or just the kind of person I was. In an effort of collaboration, whether it's a job or a situation in your daily life, the worst type of problem that comes up when making an effort for everything to work out is a lack of true communication. There's no worse way to learn than when you think you know everything or not getting advice from another individual with experience, especially that you're familiar with. Even if each individual involved in a specific activity doesn't exactly know what to do, The goal should be for the best idea to prosper instead of what you mainly think would be the best scenario in your own mind. If you were to ask the most hardworking and successful people you know within your group of peers how they learned most of what they know now, you will probably hear a lot of what they did wrong at first or what advice they were given changing what they originally thought. To the average human, I've learned that there aren't any set paths in life for how someone envisioned what it'd be like at an early age, or even saying how everything will go once they reach adulthood. One of the biggest ways of personal growth is in the literal Merriam-Webster dictionary definition of learning as a modification of a behavioral tendency by experience. If I'm not truly experiencing something because of the fear that it could go wrong, then what will I do or learn in my efforts to grow as a person when anything unexpectedly doesn't go my way? The easiest way to go through a certain period of living is to be surrounded in an environment where everything makes sense and there's little to nothing that can go wrong. While all of this sounds good, no matter how much you have, you can always strive for better thinking as if you don't have it all figured out. I know I don't, and I'm far from it at my age. Literary journalist Charles Bowden discussed this process of thinking as he once wrote, "Imagine the problem is that we cannot imagine a future where we possess less, but are more." The problem is many people I talk to think of their best life as having a big house, nice cars, high-dollar clothes, or just simply having the access to gain whatever they desire to make them feel happy. From taking a deep dive of how even celebrities can often feel mentally terrible with what is perceived as the world being in their hands, it seemed as if the only way for true happiness in an individual is to just genuinely feel good as a person. The best way we can make the years on this planet worth it isn't by just having something nice, although nice things you desire aren't bad, but to a greater extent just feeling as if you know yourself and you appreciate the person you see in the mirror. No money in the world can buy you long-term happiness. Instead, money will always come as long as you are confident in being the best version of yourself in the present day. The constant fear I've dealt with most of my days in terms of failing and making mistakes while trying to live on Earth according to the path I envisioned has kept me out of the loop of so many different opportunities I wasn't familiar with, until now. In past years, I've focused on avoiding the stress of living by trying to make situations as easy as possible for myself and being able to do what I want to do at the same time. While doing what you put your mind to isn't a bad thing at all, forcing yourself to try and avoid the obstacles life will inevitably give you for something else is only going to make the path even more challenging. One thing I was grateful to figure out by just getting out of my comfort zone is that there's plenty I've learned from going through something that I thought was hard. I've waited multiple times for something to come to me that fits my specialties and will be easy to adapt to. But the reality of doing this is that there's a much lower chance of something that is just right falling into your lap rather than finding and working for what can benefit your life on your own power. Even having the right opportunity supposedly fall into your lap and it starts off being completely familiar to you. What will happen when something unexpected with a negative impact occurs? Will you drop that opportunity that once felt lucky for you to have? Or are you going to keep living life forward and overcome the challenges? In a world that is more unprecedented now than it has been in at least the last century, both sacrifice and perseverance have been stigmatized in recent years. There has been many historical events and disasters that have happened since I was born over 24 years ago. But what really makes these times unprecedented is the impact of social media and just technology as a whole being something people can't even catch up to with how fast it has advanced in just the last 10 years. I bring up this point to say that now gathering the thoughts of millions around the world about their internal thoughts of the general public is what becomes a popular post and even a mindset some people have. Why this is so dangerous is the fact that even when I feel deep down that I can push through certain obstacles and unexpected situations life throws at me, so many other people's thoughts that I don't even personally connect to constantly come across my mind. It's easier to quit certain tasks or give up because people talk down on hard times every day on the internet. What doesn't trend and get through everybody is someone's own personal thought or experience that not many can relate to. This sounds like a no-brainer, but how often have you seen someone post about how they failed at something yet bounced back and kept pushing forward? Going through school is good for being informed by books and sources of what other people have already lived through. Yet the main way I've learned in the real world is by messing up and moving forward anywhere. You can search the web or maybe ask AI about simple questions of living, but the main way you're going to adapt experience is from the best source imaginable, which is you riding on the most unique roller coaster known as life.